Hello, welcome to Technical Founders. My name is Carlos Lara, software engineer and entrepreneur, and in this video, we will be learning about the Visual State Manager in Xamarin.Forms. Now, the Visual State Manager is a new feature in Xamarin.Forms 3.0 that allows you to trigger changes to properties of visual elements from code. So for example, a property changes, it's going to trigger a property change in a visual element. So it allows us to customize the appearance of our mobile application. So here we have our Technical Founders app for iOS and Android here. So, and we have a sign-in page now and we also have a sign-up page here. So it's very simple. We just have a create account form here where we enter username, email, password, etc. And so here, basically, we're doing some basic validation with these entries. So yeah, we have our XAML file where we have defined our entries, etc., our visual elements. And every time the entry, we have here event handlers for these entries for text changed events here. But we have our username text changed event, email text changed, and password text changed. So every time the text changes, we are going to basically call this method for each validate username, validate email, and validate password. And we're going to do some simple validation that we have set up arbitrarily, just very simple validation. So let's take a look on what it looks like without using the Visual State Manager. So here we have this focused entry. So we can enter a username, for example, let's say Xamarin, just for example. Email, we can say, let's just use my email. And for password, it says 6 or more characters. So let's just say hello world, and you hit create your account. Success. So I have disabled the actual validation logic, the navigation logic and the backend, all that stuff, just for illustration purposes to focus on the Visual State Manager. And by the way, this code can be found in my GitHub account. The username is Lean Manager, so you can find the code there under Technical Founders. So if you don't do 6 characters, for example, if you say just 2 characters, it says please enter the required information. Because here, for example, for the password changes, validate passwords notices it's not 6 characters, therefore it doesn't go through. And here we have our view model, sign up page view model. We just have a couple of commands. One, go back to the sign in page, and a create account command. And here again, I disabled some of the logic, the process registration here, a waited call. And we're just simply, if this Boolean is true, then we just say success, your account has been created. Otherwise, please enter error, please enter the required information. And this this comes here from our command. It takes a command parameter of type Boolean here, or can create, and we pass here. And if you haven't watched that video, I highly suggest it. It's called Command in Xamarin.Forms in this same series. So let's actually go back here. See, our binding context is the view model. And here, let me just show you, okay, here in the code behind. So we have our isValid here method, and every time we run our text changes and we run this method to validate our entry, our input, we are just going to set a Boolean property in our view model by assigning it this method. This is valid. Here in our view model, here we have the isValid, and our method here basically runs these three calls and returns the combined Boolean here. So if they're all true, so if they're all valid, then it's going to return true, and that property is going to be set to true. So again, if you want to look at, that's not the point, this code, you can take a look at it slower and at your own pace after the video and the code, which is in my GitHub account. So let's get to the Visual State Manager. So what we want here is to, every time we have we have a focused on the entry, we want it to change its background color. So what we are going to do here is we are going to add some code that I already have here, and I'm going to show you what it means. So we do this in XAML, because it's a lot simpler, and this is the best practice. So in our content page resources, and you can do this at the app level as well, but we're going to do it at the content page level, we are going to add a style. And if you notice here, I don't have an X key for this style, which means it will be applied to all the target types in this page, in this case, the entry. So all of the entries are going to be applied this style without me having to say style a static markup extension, static resource, all that stuff. So we have our style, and then as usual we have a setter here, or a group of setters, and we have a property, and all visual elements have this property called visual state manager dot visual state groups. And in here, and this is pretty verbose as you can see, so inside the setter we have a visual state group list tag. So it's our list of visual states, and Xamarin.Forms by default defines what we call the common states. And the first state is normal, so the entry or the visual element by itself, not focused, not disabled, just enabled, just the normal state. And then we have a focused state here, and here we have visual state tags for every state, and we have a disabled state. So here on the focused state, we are going to say visual state setters. So for this visual state, we have additional setters here. So for our setters, we set the setter, and the property is a background color, and we want to turn it to light yellow. So basically, when any entry on this page is focused, it's in the focused visual state, this property background color is going to be assigned this value of light yellow, and by default it's white. So let's go ahead and see this in action and see what it looks like. Right now we're not doing anything for the normal and the disabled states. We only care right now for the focused. And this helps the user. It's better user experience because the user sees which entry is focused, which entry they're in right now. So as you can see, in the username entry, it's highlighted, so you get the focus state. Same with the email, same with the password. So very cool, adds more polish to the user interface, and we can actually run this on Android as well, just to show you what it looks like. And it's going to be the same behavior. Now we can have multiple visual state groups here. It doesn't have to be just the one common states. We can define our own visual state groups, which is why we have a visual state group list, and we can add those here. So let's see what Android looks like. Sign up, and same thing. We have the focused visual state here on our entry, same here, and same on the password. Very nice, very, very beautiful, and gives it more polish to our UI, and cross-platform. So we only write the code once, and we automatically get it for our supported platforms. So let's go ahead and stop that. And now here we want to add a little bit more polish, more to our UI. So I'm actually going to define another visual state group here. That is called validation states. So basically, if our validate username returns false, for example, if it's not a valid username, not a valid email, not a valid password, I want the entry text to be red, and if it is valid, I want it to be green. So we're going to go ahead and add that visual state group here. And again, so we have our common states, and now we have another group inside our visual state group list, and it's called validation states. And our validation states, we have two states, valid and invalid. And basically, and if it is valid, then we are going to set this property. So the text color will be green for the entry, for this particular entry, and for the invalid, the text color will be light coral, which is like a light red kind of type of a color. Now, so this is, like I said, this is Xamarin.Forms provides the common states visual state group by default, but here we have defined a custom visual state group, the validation states. So now we need code. So in our code behind here, so let's start with our validate username method. We have some commented out code here. So we're going to check the is valid. So we have this line of code here, which is going to be a string. So basically, if it is valid, so this valid returns true, then our string is going to be assigned this valid value, otherwise it's invalid. And here we have our visual state manager. Don't worry about the next one. Right now we'll focus on this one. So visual state manager, go to state. It's just a method here coming from visual state manager, go to state, and it takes two parameters. It takes the actual, the X name for the control, for the visual element that we define in XAML, and the actual state that you want it to go to. So for example, if it is valid, it's going to go to this entry, the username entry is going to go to the state, to the valid state. And again, here in XAML, we can see the valid state, which means it's going to call the setter. It's going to set this text color property to green. And otherwise, and if it's invalid, if it happens to be invalid here, it's going to go to the invalid state. So let's go ahead and run it first on Android here, and let's see what it looks like. And I'll show you real quick after this how we can also do it for the validate email and the validate password, but just to show you real quick here on Android for that entry, for the username entry, see what it looks like. And actually, because actually I'm going to stop it, and I'm going to go ahead and do it for the others, because the valid I set it just to accept just one character, so we're not going to be able to see that color. So let's go ahead and do the same thing here for validate email. Again, email entry going to the state, so it's the same thing, very consistent. And if we follow clean code principles, I can actually put that in its own method. But we'll go ahead and just do it like this for now, just individually here in each method. So actually, and to make it quick, let's go ahead and just run on iOS going forward. But it's going to be essentially the same thing on both iOS. I'll show you Android at the end, but here we'll just do iOS. So again, we have this, and then our is focused, still working, and now our username. Let's just say Theme Manager. You see how it's green? Because it's accepting. So in our email, let's say I'm going to start typing my email address. So you see how it's light coral? It's like a light red kind of a color, because the validate email method is returning false for the is valid. So saying it's not valid. And see how it turns green? Once it recognizes, my method recognizes that it's a valid email address, now it turns green. So that's very cool. And here password takes 6 or more characters. So if we do, let's say 2 characters, it's red. But as soon as we hit the magic number, it turns green, which is 6 characters or more. So again, even better. So now we have the background color, which is changing, that visual state, the focus state, but we also have the validation state. And those states are mutually exclusive, so you can be in multiple states at the same time. So here we're in a focus state and also in the valid state for our validation state. So very, very cool. And again, if we just have a few characters less than 6, it's red. And if we try to create the account, please enter the required information. It's not accepting it. And once we go over, it accepts it. So very nice, even better for the user to be able to see whether an entry or some kind of input that it's valid or not. So it's very nice, and as you see, immediately adds polish to the application. So let's stop. So I've also added there are labels here that are actually also validating. That are letting the user know whether this is valid in addition to the actual entry. So let's go ahead and stop this, and let's go to our XAML. And here, in this code that I already have before, we have another style here that I'm going to bring in to our XAML. And this time I do have an X key, because only a handful, some labels, not all of them, are going to have this style applied to them. So now the target type is label, and I just set property and a couple of properties here, but the important one is here again, visual state manager dot visual state groups, same syntax, visual state group list, and here we have our visual state group, and here we define again a custom visual state group we call a validation state for the label. So we have the normal state, which nothing is happening, and then valid and invalid. And if it's valid, is visible, is going to be false. So we don't want to show that error label if it is valid, but if it's invalid, so for example, if the input the user put in is not valid, we want this label to be visible now and text color in red and show and give the user some kind of input or direction as to what they should do next, or what's wrong or what's right, etc. So I actually, since I have the key here, I need to add the style to our labels. So here, create account, username fields. So username validation label here. So this is where I have it. So we're going to do style, then markup extension static resource. And what was our key? Validation message style is what we called it. And we're going to add this one to the others as well. So to the other 3 labels. So we have an email validation label as well. So we have one more for the password here. And again, because it's custom states, we need to go to our code here, to our validate username. So username validation label, which is our hidden label, it's going to go to that state, to the valid or invalid. And here we did it in a clever way where we made them match valid and invalid here. They match for the 2, so it's cleaner code, is better. Going forward, email validation label, same thing, pretty consistent. So now we're going to 2 states. The entry is going to a state, and the label is going to a state based on this value here. So we'll actually leave the password strength alone for now. I'll show you in a moment what that's like, what that is. So, well, actually, why not? Let's just say visual state manager, go to state, and we are going to pass the password validation label and just go to the state. Let's run it on iOS and let's see what we get. Again, we're triggering this the go to state for our custom visual states in code and our code behind here. And this is the right way to do it because it's in the view layer. This is not in the view model layer because we're dealing with user interface changes. So again, we have the visual state, the background. Oh, and you can see those come up. Valid email address required. Very interesting. So, okay, and again, we have this visual state. So let's start typing an email address and it's red. Oop. And once it recognizes that it's valid, that goes away. The visual state is triggered here. Once for this label, once it's valid, then the is visible as false. So it gets hidden again. And as long as it's invalid, it's going to be visible with the text color of red. So again, very cool, gives it a lot more polish to the UI. And here for the password, the same thing. So we enter 3 characters. It says this remains saying password must be 6 characters or more. It doesn't accept it. But as we add more characters, then it goes away and this turns green, and now we can create our account. So again, see how the UI is polished. It looks better, cleaner immediately just by, and again, cross-platform. And I'll show you at the end how this on Android how this works. So just to end here, I'm going to show you one more thing, which is actually pretty neat, where we are going to add another here, another style here that is going to be based on another style. So we're going to add it to our XAML. So here we have we call it password strength style. It's going to check the password strength, which is actually very cool if you want to add that in your application. So this style is based on the validation message style, this style. So it's going to grab these, it's going to get these validation states, normal, valid, and invalid, but it also is going to include the strength states that we're calling here. Again, same thing, visual state group manager, visual state groups in our setter. Visual state group list, visual state group, very verbose, but you get the idea. It's exactly the same thing. We have 3 visual state: invalid, which is going to match our invalid, and they have our weak, and then our strong. So weak password, you can create a registration, it'll be fun, you can sign up, but it'll say it's weak, and a strong. And you see the text color is going to be green for strong, for weak is going to be blue, and for invalid is going to be red. So again, adding even more polish to the UI in a cross-platform way here in our .NET Standard project, or what we would usually refer to as our PCL project, where our share code is. So again, target type label, and this is based on the validation message style. So this one we only needed for the password label, for that last one here. So password validation label, static resource, and here we want the password strength style. So it's going to be very cool. And let's go to code as well. This is what we had here. So we don't need this one anymore. And we're going to uncheck this code here. So it's just some basic validation. So strength state, invalid by default. Now, if the password strength is greater than or equal to 10, the strength state is going to be strong. And if it's greater than or equal to 6, it's going to be weak. So, and our visual state manager is going to go to the appropriate state here based on that. So again, even more detailed, and let's go ahead and run it on iOS. Same thing, we still have all of our others that we had before, and again, it immediately throws these ones because it doesn't recognize that there are any valid entries there. So let's use my GitHub username there where you can find this code. Now it's focused again, see it's still the background color. So email, again, same as before, very nice validation, changing color. And for the password here, let's say just 3 characters. It says 6 or more characters required, so it's still red as we expect. But if we add another 3, it's green. It lets you create an account, see, success, but it says your password could be stronger. So this new visual state is getting triggered here. So the weak state, and as you see, the text color is blue for that label. Is visible is true, and it says your password could be stronger. And again, we only applied this style, this password strength style here, this visual state, to just that label, because that's the only one that's checking for password strength. And again, this style is based on the validation message style here. So, and then if we add more, let's just say we do hello world. We hit 10 characters, and now it says your password is nice and strong in green. So now the strong strength state is triggered here. And you can again create your account. So very, very nice. You see very quickly, very easily. You can add polish to your view layer, to your user interface. And again, using the Visual State Manager in Xamarin.Forms. And like I said, we're actually doing all here in a shared way, in a cross-platform here, where you don't need any platform-specific code to do this. And this is not being done at the view model layer. This is done at the view layer, which makes sense because these are changes to the visual properties, properties of visual elements of our page here. So same thing on Android. So username, again, the visual states, everything is as well. And here for email, valid email address required. Again, look, on Android working beautifully, recognizes a valid email and changes, goes to that visual state. And then here 6 or more characters required for the password. So let's go ahead and just say, let's just do 3. Still doesn't recognize it. Let's do another 3. And now it turns green, but it says your password could be stronger, same as iOS. And we add more until your password is nice and strong, and you can create your account. So again, very, very nice Visual State Manager in Xamarin.Forms. So again, the code is on GitHub. Feel free to check it out. My username is Lean Manager, as it says here, and the app is called Technical Founder. So thank you for watching. I hope you liked it. If you have any questions, thoughts, comments, leave them below, and I'll see you next time.